Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Communicast, the official podcast of the Google Plus comic book community. This is issue number 5 for the week of October 2nd, 2013. I'm Justin Beeson and I'm joined by my co-hosts Paul Christopher.
Hello.
Sarah Evans.
Hi.
And Aaron Travis.
Hello.
Each episode we take a look at a few comics from this week that we couldn't wait to read first, as well as talk about last week's community pick of the week and other content that can generate discussion. So let's start it right off. Paul, what's your first pick?
All right, first of all, let me redo that. Hello from the south of France.
Oh,
It's 5 in the morning. This is how much I love you guys. All right, so my first pick is going to be The Bunker from Fialkov and Infernari. Anyway, this book is one that I accidentally stumbled upon. It was like in the new and noteworthy section in Comixology. One of the amazing things about it, well, it's like Lost. All right, so the idea is it's this group of friends, and they're like out in the woods, and they're like gonna like bury. I think it was like a time capsule or something like that, and they end up uncovering this. The titular bunker, and inside is all of this stuff and letters to each of them from their future selves. And apparently the future is not so bright. So it's got a lot of like, it sounds a lot like Lost. It's got a lot of Lost vibe as far as like this like mystery, and as of this issue, they started with flash forwards. But also it's got a significant Stephen King vibe, where it's I don't know, it's this young group of friends that is suddenly thrown into this extraordinary, terrifying situation, and it seems like a lot of Stephen King books kind of have that same kind of setup. But it's only 3 issues in. It's really, really, really good. If you like, mysteries, if you like well-written stories, absolutely go get it. It's only in black and white, but color never really bothered me. So yeah, absolutely go get it. It's The Bunker. It's only 3 issues in, and I'm already hooked, just like I was after the first episode of Lost.
Yeah, this comic has been really good. I heard Joshua Hale Fialkov talking about it months ago, and he, had you could sign up for a mail list, and I signed up. And then when the first email came, 3 months ago, I was like, "What is this? I don't remember this at all." And so, I started reading it too right off the bat, and it's really good. I hadn't thought about the Stephen King comparison before too, but yeah, you're right, it totally does. And the black and white, like I sometimes have a tough time reading black and white stuff, but the artist puts a lot of depth in there for being black and white.
Yeah, no, it's the art isn't like super realistic, but it's very good for the story.
Yeah, definitely, and I love the dynamic of the letters being sent back to these people and the way like they react to them.
Yeah, because you have to understand, like the letters aren't all positive. As a matter of fact, for a lot of cases, they're negative. Because basically, and I'm not revealing anything because this is from the first issue. It's like the world has ended, and that's why they're sending these letters back. Like, you have to do something, and like it's like everybody's got something, like some secret within their own letter that they're not revealing to everybody else. It's really amazing.
And it comes out. And it's a monthly comic, but it's only $2. And then you can. Are you reading on Comixology, or you're reading it from their site?
No, I'm reading it on Comixology.
Okay. Yeah, because you can either buy it on the site and get a DRM-free file that they'll email you about actually like a few days. Like they email it out on, I think, Friday, and then they release it on Comixology the next Monday.
Now, is that the What is the Bunker site, or is that a different site?
No, whatisthebunker.com has it all there.
Okay. Yeah.
Did Sarah, Aaron, have you guys had a chance to check this out?
Oh, not yet, but I definitely will now. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
this is the first time I've heard of it, and it sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, definite recommendation. Okay, so Sarah, what was your pick for this week?
This week, the Movement #5 came out, and the Movement has been a really great series. It's actually one of the few that I'm still pulling from DC since the New 52 premiered, because I just haven't really gotten along with it. But the Movement kind of personifies a lot of the themes and the trends and reasons why I've kind of gone away from DC as one of the big two. It's got so many female characters on this team. They're really idealistic. They really believe in what they're doing. The overall feel of the comic is really kind of gritty because it's set in this really corrupt kind of urban area, but at the same time there's so much optimism coming from these characters who are trying to do such a good thing by turning the city around that it's not the same grimdark feel that you get from a lot of other superhero comics these days. And the characters have been fantastic. In this issue, we continue to see the leader of this team, or this actual literal movement, because it's not just the superhero team that's comprised of about 5 or 6 characters themselves. It's the idea that all of these youth and poor and disabled and somehow disadvantaged people within the city are jumping on board with this, and they're kind of trying to help take the power back and move their city in a positive direction. Well, this issue has the leader of the movement as a whole, the character Virtue, who, gotta say, I've loved this character from the start. Love her costume, love the idea that, you know, these are not people who can afford really fancy costumes, and she's basically wearing a t-shirt and some leather gloves because that's what she can find, and it's just really great. But she comes into conflict again. She's had a running kind of communication with the chief of police, who we feel like he's a good guy throughout the past 5 issues since the story started, but at the same time he's basically under the thumb of a lot of the big corrupt influences in the city, and there's not a lot he can do. Plus he just thinks the movement as a whole is really destructive. And so we've got them kind of coming into contact, and we see that he's got a mole within the movement. So that kind of, it was revealed a little bit last issue. We weren't entirely sure whether the character Tremor was working for Amanda Waller when the last issue came out. Now we see that there's kind of more going on with the movement kind of falling in on itself, and we get a whole cast of costume supervillains throwing their hats into the fray as well, which we haven't really seen so far. It's basically been the movement and the 5 or 6 people who side with them against the police force. So now it looks like we're going to see some cape on cape.
Cool.
So it sounds kind of like DC's answer to Kick-Ass from just the way you're describing it, with like, you know, like this grassroots making their own costumes kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah. It's not so much that these characters have a burning desire to be superheroes, but a few issues ago there was it was just a really rich issue that kind of explained all of their backstories, and not in an overpowering way, but we kind of see they all have different reasons to really push for change within their city. The comic itself is really trying to associate with the Occupy Wall Street movement that was happening just about a year or so ago, and the people kind of trying to work for themselves because they know that the people who are higher up in Coral City are not interested in protecting them anymore.
Mm.
What do you think about the art? Like, because I read the first issue and I read this issue, but like, I wasn't a huge fan of the artist, and I don't know whether it's him or whether it's the inker, because it's very like there's just a lot of filled in shading and stuff, and like a lot of scratchy lines that kind of distracted me from the story.
Right. Well, I feel like the artist is very well kind of story that they're trying to tell. Ordinarily, I would go for a kind of a less cartoonish style as well, with the really ever-present kind of black lines on everything and people's faces, but this comic, it's so full of people who really believe in their core about the things that they're doing, and they're coming into, I keep saying this, they're coming into contact with other characters who believe the opposite of what they do, and that can get very heated, just like any kind of political discussion, only this one is happening with fists in the police department. And I feel like you have to have an art style that really expresses a lot of that emotion and a lot of that just raw motivation on people's faces. Not to mention the dark lines, the shading. The colorist is doing great work, I think. They're really they're really trying to set it in like an urban kind of inner city feel.
It has a lot of fans too. It's kind of turning into DC's version of Captain Marvel, where like there's a lot of like fan art and stuff that you see that gets posted online.
Definitely. A person I follow is doing a Catharsis cosplay. She's one of the characters, and as she has giant metal wings, I'm really interested in how that cosplay is going to turn out. But yeah, I feel Gail Simone is extremely talented, and given her usual methods, I'm waiting to see who on the team is going to be queer somehow, because she usually has some good representation in that category.
Cool. All right.
So are these brand new characters, or are these established DC like second stringers that they're bringing up to the front, or?
The majority of them are new characters, and they're really engaging. They're really, I don't know, a few of them come from your stereotypical superhero backgrounds, like one character, Mouse, came from a very rich family, but because of his powers, his parents kind of felt repelled by him, so he went to the streets and started fighting crime and that sort of thing. One character from previously, before the New 52, is Tremor, and she was a character that Gail Simone actually created in her Secret Six run, if I'm not mistaken. So she worked with them for a while, but I can't help but feel that we're getting a younger incarnation of her in this book, because everyone else in the movement is so young, like they're teenagers, they're just kids, and that's kind of just the overall feel of the comic.
Cool. All right. Well, now that we've gotten Aaron to jump back into weekly comics to do the podcast, what was your pick this week, Aaron?
My pick was Shadowman 11. I've never read the comics before, and I really, really loved the 99 game. I played it on Dreamcast. I loved the style. I loved the mythology behind it, and it was just really gritty and dark. And I'd heard that the comic was more so, and I guess that was when I think it was Garth Ennis was doing it for the Activision, when Activision was running Valiant or some kind of jive. But I thought this was a good time to hop into it. It's number 11 is it's the start of a new story arc. They just wrapped up a big story with the big bad in the series, which does not come into play in this one. And so I figured, yeah, I'd hop into it. And basically it's basically just Halloween. This story of this issue is just it's Halloween in the French Quarter in New Orleans, and there's just some general shenaniganery that goes wrong in kind of a voodoo terms. It's really kind of nondescript, but I'll get to that later. So I'm going to start with how I felt about the art about it. The art was really cool. It was actually pretty decent. One of the things that got me also wanting to get back into it was seeing some of the preview pages and such. They use the layout of the page really well. Good transitions. It was really engaging, really interesting. The bad guys, the evil spirits, look pretty cool. It's obvious what they are and what they represent. They're these kind of insecty, flyish kind of creatures, and they're kind of what you would expect out of that. They're kind of like kind of decay kind of creature kind of things. The action was done pretty well. It's pretty compelling. It was interesting. Kept me moving. Shadowman. The way they made the character for this new reboot, he looks very generic. He looks like I can't remember the name of the character from the Young Bloods, the black guy with the skull on his face. I cannot remember him his name for the life. Chapel, exactly. Yes, he looks like Chapel in a Blade trench coat. So I mean, he's very nondescript. He carries around this big, standardly comic booky looking, kind of Reaper's kind of Scythe kind of thing, and it has nothing to do with any kind of voodoo lore. So that was kind of disappointing, and that brings me to the writing of it, which was really I found it really just meh. It was okay. It was very standard. Nothing too incredibly special here. The characters were very cookie cutter. They were, they made Shadowman basically just this kind of standard vigilante kind of character. There were some supporting characters that, to tell you the truth, I would have to look up their names because they were just so standard. There was the normal woman character that was obviously only there as kind of a relationship piece for him. The voodoo theme wasn't there like I thought it would be because I'm going to compare it to the video game, which from what I've heard, people that were fans of Shadowman before that thought it was really watered down, but it was so dark, it was gritty, it was creepy as heck. And Shadowman from back then looked like this like spiritual hobo kind of thing. And he didn't look. He was just way too slick, and the entire thing kind of had that feel. Not only that, they edited out the cussing. There was a amazing amount of cussing in there. It was freaking New Orleans and the French Quarter on Halloween, and they edited out the cussing. So yeah, that's just kind of how it was.
Do you think that you'll go back and start collecting the original run and see how that went?
Honestly, I would. The creative department was changed for this before this plotline. I think it changed after 10. It may have been maybe one or so before that, and I would actually go back and read those, and I would actually like to read the initial reboot that they had whenever Acclaim took over Valiant. In the mid-90s. I would actually read those. I'm not the original one doesn't really look too interesting to me after looking back on it, but those ones I will definitely check out, and I might get the next one because this is the beginning of a story arc, and the beginning of story arcs are always kind of slow. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I read that one too, and I pretty much felt the same way. It was just kind of, I guess, like forgettable. Like it was all right.
It was meh. It was every other comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so for my pick, I picked Marvel Knights Spider-Man #1, continuing my series of Matt Kent picks. This one's significant for two reasons. One, it's the relaunch of their Marvel Knights brand, which is supposed to be like, forward-looking storytelling, finding new ways to tell stories. And it's the return of Peter Parker. The first time he's been seen in comics since Superior Spider-Man took over. And basically the premise of this book, I think it's 5 or 6 issue miniseries, and it's Spider-Man against 99 villains. So how they set it up is he just kind of, his spider sense starts going off, and then Madam Web pushes him. And in typical, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the character, but she's kind of an oracle-y type person, and she basically says you have 99 trials that you'll have to do. And
Kumite.
Yeah, and this comic is crazy. The first thing that hits you is the artwork, because it's completely out of left field. Every page is a splash page.
Wait, did you say light field? Because
Left
otherwise,
No. Left field, not right field. No, stay away from that. He has feet. But every page is a splash page, and then there's smaller panels over it. And it switches between. It's very not psychedelic, but very stylistic. But the artist switches in between styles. So there's everything from regular comic art. What looks like a charcoal art, painting, watercolor, and there's even a couple parts where there's pixel art. And it's because it's so fast-paced. I think there's 5 different villains in this. So there'll be a page or a page and a half of a villain, and then he gets kind of knocked into another room, and then starts going against another villain, and it's. If you're just looking at the words, you'd zoom through it because it's so fast-paced. But I found myself going oh no, I need to go back and look at these pages because they're amazing. What the artist does with the layouts and everything is very cool. And then the funny part is Peter Parker's back, but it ends up not really mattering that much because you don't really get much of personality coming out because it's pretty much just all action, the whole issue. But it is definitely an awesome comic, and I will be picking up the rest of it.
So does it fall within the regular Spider-Man continuity, or is this kind of like an outside continuity, self-contained story? Is Peter Parker back in the Marvel Universe?
No, he's not. This is a self-contained story, and I don't think it'll really matter whether it's in continuity or not, because it just sounds like it's just Spider-Man going, fighting people. But yeah, Peter Parker's not back. It's just kind of Marvel's starting to do like flashback stories, so they have this, and then starting in November, they're doing Amazing Spider-Man 700.1, 2, 3, and 4, I think. So they're trying to bring back. But yeah, definite recommendation. It's really good. So Paul, is there any other significant books that you pulled this week?
Yes, the most significant one, because you tricked me with your subliminal messaging. You said, like, oh, the new Bunker's out, you want to talk about that? And I was like, yeah, that's great. And then I'm pulling my comics, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Bedlam is out, and I want to talk about that, but I've already committed to the Bunker, so we're going to talk about Bedlam for just 1 second. Basically, Bedlam is, if you imagine the Joker gets captured and handed off to the doctors from the Clockwork Orange and more or less cured, not quite lobotomized, but cured and released back into society, and now he's working for the police and going after these other super criminals as like a consultant, but they have no idea who he is. So he's like kind of like in a witness protection program. That's basically what this comic book is about. It's very clearly a pastiche on Batman's relationship with the Joker, and they're not all that they're not all that friendly with the Batman analog. He's got like serious mom problems. Like he's like he's a member of like the local government, and his mom is always like trying to get him to stop being his superhero name is the First. His mom's always nagging him about like stop being the First. You need to go and full on your councilman duties, so maybe one day you could be a senator or even the president and all this. So yeah, he's not cast very favorably in the comic book, but the character of his name is Matter Red, and he's fantastic. Every time they do a flashback to when he was a major supervillain, it's really interesting. So Bedlam, it's on issue. Let's see. It's on issue 9, but it's totally worth it. It's only drawn in black, white, and red, but it's fantastic comic.
That's cool.
Absolutely worth your time.
The first issue was really red.
Yes,
it was. That was one that you really pushed me to read, and it was fantastic. That is a great comic.
Yep. My other pulls were Batman Black and White #2. I finally got back to and got the Batman comics that I missed from last week. The superhero villains month comics I missed from last week. I got Detective Comics #24. That was good. That was the conclusion of the storyline that they had been working on. That I was annoyed because freaking Villains Month. Forever Evil number. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm actually excited about Detective Comics now because it just was. I don't know if it was actually announced, but Bleeding Cool released it that Brian Buccellato and his writing partner that were on The Flash, they're taking over Detective Comics in either December or January.
Interesting. I'm interested to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. So, sorry, go ahead. Forever Evil.
Forever Evil #2. I got a new Vertigo comic called Hinterkind.
Yes.
It's interesting. Post-apocalyptic world. We don't know the whole details yet, but humans are basically like nature's come back. Like these fantasy creatures are back, and basically humans are on the brink of extinction. They're in like these small enclaves, and yeah, it's really interesting. Definitely pick up the first issue and give it a shot.
Yeah, I was going to, and then my shop didn't have it when I got there, so I'm gonna have to go look it up on Comixology later.
Yep. And because you guys in the Google Plus comic book community demanded it, I checked out Sex Criminals #1, and we'll talk about that later. It was awesome. And Lazarus #4, I spoke about that on a previous Communicast. You know I love that comic. Absolutely go get it. And The Bunker. So yeah, that's my pull for this week.
Cool. Aaron, what else you pull this week?
I nabbed Elephant Men 51. I love Elephant Men. Elephant Men is one of my it is one of my absolute favorite comics. It's so good. If you've never read any of them, I would pick up any Elephant Men or Hip Flask. They're absolutely freaking amazing. I nabbed Batman 66 #14, which I completely loved as well. I mean, I've picked two really boring comic books to talk about so far, and I wish I would have known that I liked the Batman 66 so much, because I mean I bugged the living heck out of my wife by playing the movie all the time. Nice. And I love Adam West Batman. I catch a lot of heat for it, but I love him. And I also nabbed one called Red Light Properties. It's Red Light Properties #4. It's it's on After Hours, and it's just this story about this guy who runs a property management company, but he's also writing a book on ghosts, and he's got a friend that takes pictures of them. And the art's interesting, and the story is really interesting, and I think, it was 99 cents, so I think I'll probably end up picking it up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you?
Well, Paul's already gone over Hinterkind, so I'll be brief. I saw it as a recommendation on Tumblr from someone who usually has pretty good taste, and I was a little skeptical about it at first, just because it seems like there's a lot of the post-apocalyptic young teenage girl with a bow and arrow as a main character theme going on lately, whether it's the Revolution series that didn't quite get off the ground last year, or the Hunger Games, obviously. But I was actually really charmed by this comic. It seemed really great, and honestly, I feel like the fantasy element of the fact that, like Paul said, there was the Blight, this thing that happened where almost all the humans on Earth were wiped out and everything's overgrown and going back to nature, and now you have these mythical creatures coming back out of the woodwork to try to take back what was theirs. I feel like that's really going to make the book into something that stands out from other dystopian post-apocalyptic works in the genre right now. And we had a great queer character right off the bat, so I'm about 10,000% likely to pull it. And it was just really great. The art was pretty. I can't tell. I really hope that the main character is Hispanic, because it looks like she's got kind of coloring for that, but I don't know. Hopefully we can get another character of color as the main character in a popular comic. So, fingers crossed. And aside from that, finally got my hands on Rat Queens, which came out last week, and it was really good, so I'm glad that it got nominated for one of the picks of the week, because it was incredibly entertaining, and it's definitely on my pull list now.
Yeah, that was my pick for last week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Good job. And aside from that, it's not quite out in stores, but something that caught my eye. It's a comic by Dean Tripp called Something Terrible. It's an autobiographical work about comics and how important they are to children dealing with childhood trauma and fictional heroes and how that works out for them. And it's 99 cents. You can find it online. The art was great. The story absolutely broke my heart, and it was just fantastic. And Dean Tripp, the author and the artist, he really opened himself up in a really vulnerable way that I really respect him for, and made a very strong case at the same time for Batman as not just Batman in particular as the superhero who helped him through what he was dealing with as a child, but not just as a grimdark caricature of this gritty character who's lost so much and now he's only very dark and no love, only justice and Gotham and vengeance, but as a protector as well, and that how important that is to maintain that in representation with this character. So I would definitely recommend Something Terrible.
Cool. All right. My pull list is too big to name them off, so I just want to talk about a couple. Forever Evil #2. This comic is going to have to do a lot because after putting me through Villains Month, I'm ready to just give up on that whole thing. So if this isn't good, I'm dropping that whole thing. Green Lantern.
So you haven't read it yet?
Was that?
You haven't read it yet?
No, I have. I read the comics for the episode, but I haven't gotten to the rest of them yet because
It's really good. Just FYI,
Okay.
You're good. You're going to keep reading it. It's good.
All right. Green Lantern 24. Green Lantern is my favorite character, and it just broke my heart because I had to drop it after Jeff Johns. I just couldn't take it anymore. But it's an event, and it's I think it's 4 issues long, and it's only a month long because it's going through all the titles. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this a chance. So we'll see how that goes. I browse the new Comixology releases pretty much every day, and so today there was one called The Golem, and it's a trade paperback length, and it was only $5, and so it kind of caught my eye. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. It's about a mother-son mercenary team, so that sounded a little interesting. And then Savage Wolverine #9, which is the start of Jock's arc. He's doing a 3-issue story where it's Wolverine in the far future, and I think in space or something. So it's sci-fi Wolverine, and it's Jock, so it's gonna be awesome. And then the Witching Hour, which is another Vertigo anthology, which caught my eye because I like all that kind of stuff. And then Kelly Sue's doing a story, and there's a couple other significant people, so I'm looking forward to reading that.
Let me know how that comes out because that actually caught my eye as well. I didn't pick it up, but I was really on the edge with that. So if you say it's good, then I'll go back and pick that up.
Yeah, it's hard to do it because it's $8.
Yeah,
which is a lot for a comic. It's a commitment. So
yeah.
All right, so that does it for this week's comic. So last week's pick of the week, the community finally picked. There's actually a couple surprises. One, they picked a non-Big 2 comic. 2, it was from Image and it wasn't Saga.
Yeah.
So last week's pick of the week was Sex Criminals #1 by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. This comic has been generating a lot of buzz. It's the basic premise is it's about a lady who, when she climaxes, time stops, and she finds somebody else who shares her powers, and apparently they decide to go rob banks. This first issue, though, it's just kind of leading up to that. It's establishing issue, and it's great. I feel like Fraction's writing good, but I feel like the real standout is the artist, Chip Zdarsky. With this premise, if it had been handled any other way, it would have just come off as kind of not icky, but just not as good. But the way he works together with Fraction's writing is very matter of fact and almost like cute and quirky, and yep. Zdarsky's style is more like Sunday comic strip art, and so it just makes it very bubbly, and it's cool. And then when the time actually stops, they use this cool effect where it gets kind of like rainbow colored, and there's lens flares and stuff, and it was great.
No, I agree. I absolutely love this comic. Again, I was pulled into it, kicking and streaming, because again, I just like you, I had my reservations just based on the name, like how are they going to do this? Are they going to be really stupid about it? But no, it was cute, it was quirky, it was funny. I immediately liked the characters, and that's a big one for me. If I like the characters, you can pretty much drag me through anything, and I'll follow you. And then this issue, like you said, it was basically it's all flashback of the primary female character, and forgive me, I'm not remembering her name.
Susie.
Huh?
Susie?
Susie.
Susie, thank you. Perfect. And it's flashing back, and that was kind of interesting for me, and I'm actually anxious to hear from Sarah on this, because it gets into adolescent female, sexuality and like discovering, basically she learns how to get off by accident in the bathtub. So it was interesting for me, obviously as a guy, to go through and see like this description of one young woman's self-discovery, and I was interested to hear from Sarah of how accurate that seemed to be. I mean, because it's written by a guy, so you're like automatically kind of like, how are they going to do this? Or is it going to just be total like male fantasy, or is it going to be like more, did he do his homework?
Well, Matt Fraction's married to Kelly Sue DeConnick, so I'm sure she had some input in there.
Yeah, that's a great resource right there.
So Sarah, what did you?
I found it what is it? Not necessarily, well, I guess autobiographical from the perspective of a character. I found that to be pretty accurate. So I feel like it's basically the same for most preteen boys and girls. The awkwardness, the social stigma against what's happening to you, and you don't have any control over it anyway, but it's supposed to be bad, that you want it, that you feel bad for wanting it, and it really hurt to see what this character was going through, because like Paul said, she's very relatable, she's a very sympathetic character. You can tell she's a nice person off the bat. She doesn't want to be like the dirty girls who engage in sex a lot, because she's kind of bought into that slut-shaming mentality that's kind of being hammered at her by society. If you have sex, you're bad. But it was really great to hear her voice as she aged and she got more comfortable with it. And I felt that she kind of grew out of that very well, much less traumatized than she otherwise could have been. Even though the thing with her mother, that was pretty painful. But no, I thought it was great. I love the fact that she's a librarian. Definitely, as an aspiring librarian myself and very passionate about books, that instantly hooked me. And this entire time I was thinking, okay, so the solicit said that she and this guy were going to end up robbing banks. She seems so nice. How could this happen? But the fact that she genuinely needs the money for something that she's very passionate about, these books, this library, it really made her more human to me, and I can definitely see where she's coming from. As far as the art goes, loved the more indie style, like you said. I thought it was great. It's so cute. And at the same time, I don't know, the lights are pretty. I think they do a very good job of translating what's going on there in that moment and kind of reflecting that superpower of time slowing down, but it seemed to contrast a little with the art and the rest of the comic. So, I don't know. I feel like it was very good overall, though. Definitely one of my favorites. And I'm so glad, like Paul said, the cover art was a little iffy at first. I was like, oh, look, they're using her body to market the comic. How original. But then I went and looked at the solicit for issue 2, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's the guy. All right, I can deal with this. So.
Yeah, the cover is definitely misleading on what the rest of the art was. There was a couple, like, my favorite parts were there was the one scene where they first meet the party and the way that whoever wrote or came up with the idea, where it's like a wide shot of the room, but then it shows them in each section kind of talking, and they're like finishing each other's sentences, and it basically in one scene it shows them basically falling in love, and it's it shows them both 5 different times, but in the same scene is really well done. Yeah. And then the bathroom scene where the one girl's showing Susie all the positions with the little drawings, and it's just you can tell it was Matt Fraction just thinking of crazy stuff off the top of his head. I really want them to release the script for that issue because I want to see what he wrote during that.
I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I didn't read this and I feel really left out, man. I'm gonna have to nab it. Holy crap!
Yeah, you absolutely do. And see,
you
Image is coming
it's
out
really
with like.
Good.
Yeah.
It made me feel tingly, but in a good way. But no, Image is really on the ball. Yeah, Image is really on the ball. They've got just a lot of my pull list is from Image. You know, Saga is amazing. This is amazing. There's I have to go back and look, but there's a few other ones. I think Bedlam is Image. But yeah, they're just. I remember back in the '90s when they were just basically they were a Marvel clone, and not a very good one actually. Yeah, man, but now, man, there.
The problem now though is that there's just too much good stuff. Like every week there's a new #1, and you know most of them look awesome. I'm like, oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, we're like spoiled for choice.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so that was the pick of the week. We're running way over, but we're just kind of gonna go with it. How you doing over there, Paul? I know it's early.
I'm good. I'm good. It's like 4:45 in the morning.
Yeah,
but I'm good.
All right.
That's a trooper.
Well, we had a couple big announcements this past week. Some new TV shows, possible TV shows. Neither of them have been completely greenlit, but they're going to kind of go forward with them. And the first, it's Gotham and Constantine, both DC properties on 2 different networks. What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about the Gotham announcement? First off.
Well, I was excited about. I mean, as a Batman fan, I was excited about Gotham. I've always thought it'd be cool. Like, I don't like the way Gordon has been done in the comic in the movies. I don't like the way he's been done in the movies. And quite frankly, I don't really like the way he's been done in the comics lately. I liked the way Gordon was done in year 1. Gordon was a freaking badass. Like, you had the idea that, like, if Batman wasn't around, Gordon might actually be able to handle that stuff all by himself. You know, he was not screwing around. And I'd like to see more of that on television. I'm hoping that without the Batman character to handle the dark, gritty stuff, that they might actually give it back to Gordon and let him be the badass that he was meant to be. But I'm concerned that they'll go the CW route. I'm happy that it's not on the CW, because then it automatically he would have to be like 21 years old, and it would just be a lot of him running around with his shirt off, which I'm sure some of our viewers would not mind at all. But we've already got the Arrow. And the other thing that worries me is the fact that this probably means they're not going to do a shared universe, which DC really needs to get his act together and have a shared universe somewhere. But I'm waiting to see. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Cool.
I feel like this is something that they might have been thinking about for a while, but they're
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, looks like she's gone.
Announcement timing. I don't know. I feel like this would be a great series for all the reasons. Hi, hello.
Yeah, you're still here. Good.
Have I been talking this whole time and y'all haven't been listening, or y'all haven't been getting me? Sorry. But yeah, for all the reasons that Paul listed, this could be great. But it's the ways that I've seen DC consistently fail in these areas that has me really hesitant to back this series. Like the way they've handled Commissioner Gordon in the movies, like Paul said, not totally on board with that for different reasons. Like, I feel that if they go forward with this TV show, we will not be seeing Barbara Gordon as a part of the Gordon family, even as not Batgirl, even as just Barbara. They will not use her, I feel, which is really sad, because there's a lot of great potential there, because Jim Gordon is such a great dad, and that would be such a great aspect to show in his character, that they'll probably replace her with other young children, like they did in The Dark Knight. And I feel like they will not give Renee Montoya any screen time. I feel like they'll gloss over characters that have been fan favorites for a long time, in an effort to, I don't know, focus on Jim Gordon and maybe a few new original characters and try to be really edgy with it. So I hope they would disappoint me, but right now I'm not too optimistic about the show.
Well, the good news is good news, bad news is like the TV series seem to be trying to be edgy. They're trying to get catch it by having queer characters. So they might have Renee Montoya in there just to be like, look, we got a gay guy, a gay girl, you know.
Maybe.
We'll see.
I wish. I hope. Prove me wrong, DC.
Well, if they do it, hopefully they'll do it right, and they won't do it just as like the token, LGBT character.
Oh, Renee's not the token anything if done right. So.
Right. Exactly.
So, Aaron, what did you think about that?
I don't know. I feel that it could just it's shoehorn. It's gonna end up being just them shoehorning a standard cop story into an established intellectual property. I feel that's how it's going to end up, and that's just, who cares? That's just meh. It's not going to be special. I don't think they're just going to have interesting characters that they're going to shoehorn into the next CSI.
Yeah, well, hopefully they elevate above that. Did any of you guys read Gotham Central?
I have not, but now that I've fallen in love with Brubaker, I am going to go back and do that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to too, and I mean people have been screaming for a Gotham Central show for years, and this kind of seems like it could be related, but we don't know how much they're going to take from it. But yeah, I need to go back and read it now.
Yeah, Brubaker said that he's not been approached about anything, so he doesn't think it's going to be related to Gotham Central, or if it is, they're not going to. So far they haven't asked his input on it, but
that's kind of DC's MO. They're very separated from the creators, even if they have a defining run on something. Now, what about the Constantine show? I'm actually more excited for this because it's rare to get a good TV show that incorporates supernatural elements. They come along every once in a while, but a good one, and for it to stay on the air is rare. So I'm really hoping for this one, and I think Constantine works well as an episodic, show because he's even though he deals with supernatural, he's street level.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I'm interested to see how they do it. If they're going to do it as like a continuation of the movie, so is it going to be like dark hair?
I think that's gone.
LA, or is it going to be? Well, that was even written into canon. The movie. Constantine mentioned like in other worlds, I'm like from LA and I've got black hair or something like that. But anyway, yeah. It will be interesting because right now, British characters are popular on TV. We've got like Johnny Lee Miller as Sherlock. We've got the guy Ichabod. He's basically Johnny Lee Miller's Sherlock, but in Sleepy Hollow. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. I'd like for them to go pretty push the edges a little bit of being scary and dark, and NBC with their Hannibal series, they've really gone to the edge. That's a great series. So if they do that level of darkness and grittiness and production values, boom, they've got a winner. If they try and do it kind of like Sherlock, but with the monster of the week, but we'll see. And I'd like for them to call it Hellblazer instead of Constantine, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. The one thing that will instantly win me over is if they cast James Marsters as Constantine. He's the guy who played Spike on Buffy and Angel.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. He's getting kind of out there.
He played Captain John on Torchwood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, I don't know. See, I was a huge fan of the Dresden books, and if you ever read the Harry Dresden books or saw the television show, it was absolutely horrible, and they're very similar, very, very similar. And I'm kind of worried that it didn't go that route because the Dresden books, they weren't necessarily really as heavy as Constantine, but they really neutered him like nobody's business. And this is something that would be really awesome on HBO or Showtime or something like that, but definitely not network television.
I mean, if they, like Paul was saying though, if it's anything Hannibal kind of pushed the limits. If you watch that, if it's anything like that, I think it can be effective.
Yeah, NBC's ratings are in the toilet. Yeah, NBC's ratings are in the toilet, so they're going for broke. I was very surprised that Hannibal made it onto network television, but they've got nothing to lose.
So, Sarah, what's your take on Constantine?
I think it would probably do very well as a TV show. I mean, people tend to really like that supernatural genre. I mean, Supernatural itself is starting on its 9th season next week, and Sleepy Hollow just started. That's been pretty popular online. I feel like the market is pretty primed for another supernatural TV show right now. I just feel like I can't really offer input on Constantine in particular because I have not been a huge fan of his character in the New 52. I feel like a lot of other characters, they've kind of tweaked his personality into something different and a little more selfish and I don't know, self-oriented. So I haven't been able to get behind him as a hero or even much of an anti-hero much lately. But I feel like, yes, the TV show could do very well if they put the right people on it, if they, like you said, with NBC, Hannibal, whether you love it or hate it, it's a work of art. It's a really beautiful show, and it's gotten a huge, huge fan base on the social media sites. So Constantine could probably also succeed if handled in similar ways.
Well, plus American television seems to be very enamored of British jerks. I mean, you've got Simon Cowell, you've got Gordon Ramsay, you've got again the Johnny Lee Miller's Sherlock. He's a bit kind of rude and all that. So I mean, Constantine is the consummate British jerk. So I
suppose so, but at the same time,
it's got a lot going for it.
When you're dealing with like such absolute evils and like dark forces, you have to have some kind of redeeming quality yourself, because otherwise, what's the point?
Well,
right.
I mean, in the New 52, he was redeemed because he saved the world. I mean, he did a bunch of horrible, horrible stuff, but it's because if he didn't, the world would end. And I mean, they made that pretty. They didn't make it pretty clear that often, but when they made it clear, they made it clear. There was
Every
like,
once in a while.
Sorry guys, but I got to do this. You had to die, but if you didn't, everybody else would.
I think it's that kind of playing God and the casual disregard for the lives of his companions and the people around him that make him kind of to me. But who knows? Maybe it would be different on a TV show. Maybe they would stick closer to the movie. So we just have to see if that gets greenlit.
Cool. That's about all the time we have, and actually minus time because we're way over, but it's all good.
Man, I was really hoping to cheese you off with the
we'll get to
character
that
change.
Yeah, we're gonna. This is the second attempt we've had on it, but we'll get to that discussion on another episode. The Communicast home on the web is hashtag Communicast on Google+ and cbcpodcast.tumblr.com, where you can find all our episodes in audio or video, as well as links for subscriptions, downloads, and anything else we mentioned on the show. That's about it. We will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.